Once you know what your target customer acquisition cost is by triangulating the 1/6 of LTV and 50% of ACV and finding the midpoint there, then you can go out and start doing paid customer acquisition. The holy grail to scaling is paid customer acquisition. Email that's going out doesn't provide value. You need to provide value, and it needs to go exactly to your target market who you know has the problem that your software solves. Don't just start with 1,000 leads or 5,000 leads. That's thinking small. Get everybody in your target market. Spend 2 weeks doing nothing but getting a list of everybody in your target market. If you need to spend $5,000 on it, spend $5,000 on it. Once you have that list, start reaching out to people and start showing ads to those people.
In today's episode, we're going to talk about how to grow a B2B SaaS from 1 million ARR to a $100 million exit. We're going to do this with Ryan Allis. Ryan is the CEO and founder of SaasRise, which is a community for SaaS founders growing to $1 million to $100 million in ARR. Before this, he founded iContact, which he grew in 10 years from 0 to $50 million in ARR with 70,000 customers, 1 million plus users, and sold it for $169 million. Now he helps SaaS CEOs to do the same with his community, his digital ads agency, and coaching services. Welcome to the show, Ryan.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here today.
Nice. We're going to talk about going from 1 million ARR to $100 million exit. Maybe a super basic question. Should a SaaS founder always be aiming for an exit?
I think the two options are either an exit or a long-term cash flowing company. Either's fine. But because technology is so disruptive, you can have a cash flowing company 1 year and then be outcompeted the next. In a high growth, rapidly changing industry like technology, I think it's helpful to think about things in terms of, let me build for 5 to 10 years, let me sell, and then let me go build something else. I do think an exit is the ultimate outcome for the large majority of successful technology companies.
Yeah, because in the end, you would never know if the revenue stream would always continue with the changing market, as you mentioned.
That's right. And you could always become big enough to go public, like a Microsoft type example, or you could do what SAP did in North Carolina and become a very big multi-billion-dollar privately held software company. But that's very rare. That's like a 1 in a million chance. I think it's a better goal to say, let's go for a 9-figure exit, $100 million outcomes. And that's what I help companies achieve.
And before we dive into depth, what is your view on bootstrapping versus VC funded?
I think it's important to bootstrap for the first year or two to get to, let's just call it at least $500,000 in ARR before considering any substantial outside capital. I think it's important to say no to institutional capital until you're large enough, growing fast enough, and have a good enough negotiating power to make the terms good. So what we did at iContact, we got to 1 million in ARR, and then we raised our first outside capital. We bootstrapped all the way to 1 million, and then we raised $500,000. A year later, we raised 7 million. And then 5 years later, we raised 40 million. We never raised more than 1 times our ARR. And that was very helpful to minimizing dilution and maintaining control.
Interesting. And I guess the main reason for you as well, as you mentioned, get to the 500K ARR yourself first is to get yourself in a good negotiation position.
That's right. And the other thing is, if you raise institutional capital, venture capital, and don't succeed, in other words, you don't grow in the 18 months after you raise the capital because you raised it too soon before you build your growth engine, then you're ensuring that the common shareholders, including yourself as founder, are going to get nothing. And so ultimately, if you raise money at a $20 million valuation early on, and then you can't sell your company for more than 20 million, the common shareholders are going to end up with nothing. And so you got to be careful about going after the highest valuation early. What you want to do instead is build up revenue. Instead of spending 6 months trying to sell venture investors, spend 6 months getting to 500K, $1 million a year in revenue. And then the venture investors will be easy and they'll be willing to give you terms that are good.
Maybe even the tables are turned, they will come to you instead of you having to change them.
Exactly.
Cool. Well, let's start the fun part. What is the most common mistake SaaS companies make while trying to grow their business?
Common mistake. I always look at it the other way. I always look at it, what are the most effective ways to grow a SaaS business? So I'll answer that question and then I'll try to back into the mistakes. I think the most effective ways are Number one, make sure you got a great product that is easy to use. So maybe the inverse of that would be not investing enough in UI, UX initially to make sure the product solves a real problem and is easy to use. So that would be the first thing. The second thing is once you have a product with good UI, UX that solves a real problem, make sure you tell a lot of people in your target market about it. And so not doing enough outbound marketing is something that I see as a big mistake within B2B SaaS. And what I mean by that is, let's say you've made software for warehouses, just pick your niche, pick your vertical, whatever your vertical is. There are probably 100,000 warehouse owners, CTOs, CIOs, go whatever in your vertical, find your job title likely to buy, and then reach out to those people and let them know about your solution, educate them on the value of it, make sure they understand that you are here, that you understand their problem, you have an empathic awareness of their situation, of their problem, and then just offer them a free trial of it, offer them an interactive demo of it, offer them a PDF that's actually valuable, that educates them, offer them a case study. And so not doing enough outbound marketing to let the market know about your solution is another big mistake.
Yeah, nice. And you're giving also the answers already what they should be doing. You're a growing community, right? How many members do you have right now?
We've got 400 active members of SaasRise. It's a community for SaaS CEOs and founders with between 1 million and 100 million in ARR. So it's a community for experienced CEOs and founders. And we started a year ago and we have over 400 active members now.
How important is it for a SaaS founder to actually have a community like this? People similar to yourself around you?
There's two problems. One is people are lonely when you're at the top, when you're building something. It's hard to get clear, good advice from people that haven't been in your shoes before. Your investors are conflicted. Your employees might not have the experience. Your spouse might not have the similar experience. And so where can you get great advice that's highly relevant to your industry? And that's why we've built SaasRise, to make it easy to get feedback, recommendations, referrals, advice, guidance, growth tips. So that's the first thing. It's lonely and it's hard to find advice. And then the second thing, there are a lot of forums out there. There are a lot of mastermind groups that are cross industry. I've been in EO and YPO and those types of forums where you sit there for 3 hours a month with the same group of 6 to 8 guys. And they're great. I recommend them. But ultimately, what I struggled with when I was building iContact for 10 years was getting a group of people who were actually building B2B SaaS companies to support me and guide me. And so that's what we've built with SaasRise.
It's super specific towards B2B SaaS companies. When we talk about the community, I know you also created a course which is called the SaaS Growth System, which I want to dive into this podcast. So could you walk us through maybe the growth system, however you would like?
It's really simple. At the highest level, number one, you need to understand your unit economics and how much a customer is worth to you. Once you understand how much a customer is worth to you, which I can go into if you want, then you do ads and outbound reach outs to then reach out to your target market, generate more customers within your customer acquisition targets. And then once you've figured out how to find a scalable channel, you raise outside capital as necessary to scale up the channels that are working. And then once you've reached, say, 20, 30 million in ARR, then you start to think about how to build the systems in place to really build a professionalized business. And then you think about exiting for 9 figures. So that's the high level of the system: unit economics, customer acquisition, outbound, paid, capital, scaling, and exiting.
Yeah, and I want to dive deeper into every topic. So when you talk about unit economics, what do you mean? What should people prepare in this stage?
There's about 4 or 5 critical metrics that every SaaS founder, CEO needs to know. The first one is average revenue per account. You need to know how much revenue an average customer pays you, and just divide total revenue by total customers to get that number. And then that would be on a monthly basis. If you're doing it on a monthly basis, it's called ARPA. If you're doing it on an annual basis, it'd be called ACV, or annual contract value. The second metric you need to know is you need to know your monthly account churn. You could do this annually or monthly, but for the sake of the example, we'll do it monthly. Let's say that you've got 100 customers and on average 3 churn per month. And then you've got a 3% account churn rate. Now, if you have a 3% account churn rate, now you need to know how long an average customer stays. And you can approximate it really closely by taking 1 divided by the churn rate. So if you do 1 divided by 0.03, that's about 33 months of life. And so you simply multiply your ARPA, your monthly revenue per account, times your lifespan, the number of average months a customer stays before they churn. And that creates your lifetime value, your LTV. Once you know your LTV, then not only do you know how much a customer is worth, but then you can approximate how much you're willing to spend to get an incremental new customer. And a good rule of thumb for most SaaS companies is about 1/6 of LTV. So if your LTV is $10,000, then you could probably spend about $1,600, 1/6 of that amount, to get an incremental new customer in the door. If your LTV is $100,000, well, then you could spend about $16,000, 1/6 of it, to get that new customer in the door in terms of sales and marketing expenses to get that incremental customer. Another way to approximate your target CAC would be about 6 months of revenue. If let's just say your average annual contract value, your ACV, let's just say that's $20,000, then you could spend about $10,000 to get an incremental new customer in terms of sales and marketing costs per new customer. So once you know what your target customer acquisition cost is, by triangulating the 1/6 of LTV and 50% of ACV and finding the midpoint there, then you can go out and start doing paid customer acquisition. The holy grail to scaling is paid customer acquisition. You can do your SEO and your inbound, and that's very helpful in growth hacking in the first 6 to 18 months. But when you're ready to scale from 1 million to 10 million, that you really do need paid. And the difference between a 3 million ARR SaaS company and a 30 million ARR SaaS company is that they've figured out how to make paid acquisition scalable. And there's really only 2 major categories of paid customer acquisition: outbound reach outs and advertising. Outbound reach outs via email and LinkedIn. You could even do cold calling or ringless voicemail if your ACV is high enough. And then paid advertising on Meta, Google, LinkedIn, AdRoll, and Bing. And what you do is you invest in these channels. You don't do them all at once. You test them and make them work one at a time and figure out how to make your actual customer acquisition costs lower than your target customer acquisition cost. What I just said there is hard to do in practice, but in theory, it's simple. You figure out your target CAC and then you acquire customers lower than that target. And if you can do that, then you'll end up with a $30-40 million SaaS company within 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, you make it sound so easy. Nice. And I guess for people listening and you have no idea how to get your unique economics, tools like Profitwell give you these kind of numbers already a bit out of the box. Do you recommend any other tools for people to use to get these numbers?
Yeah, we use them all. Profitwell is nice because it's free. SaaSgrid is free. We use Baremetrics. We pay a little bit for that, but it's really good. We've used ChartMogul in the past. So all 4 of those tools are really helpful for helping you calculate your unit economics by integrating your billing system, integrating your Stripe, and then just outputting the result.
Yeah, because in the end, you don't have to do everything manual. There are tools which can help you with that. This is probably going from step 1, preparing, to step 2, outbound. You mentioned you can do email, LinkedIn calling, or you can do paid ads. You mentioned it's the holy grail to scaling. I want to dive deeper in here. Step 2, outbound. What else can you tell what SaaS companies shouldn't do? I already mentioned experimenting. What kind of advice would you give here for step 2?
Let's talk about outbounds. The biggest differentiator between B2B SaaS companies that scale and those that don't. Those that don't are sitting there waiting for the market to show up. And those that do scale are very aggressive with going out and educating the market proactively. Now, how do you do that? First thing you need is you need a list of everybody in your target market. It's simple as that. How do you build a list of everybody in your target market? That's pretty easy. You go on to a lead prospecting tool like Apollo.io, Instantly, ZoomInfo, ListKit, Seamless.ai, LinkedIn Sales Navigator. There's 100 of them. And you go put in your industry, job titles, geography, and target employee count, and you export a list of everybody in your target market. There might be 50,000 of them. There might be 200,000 of them. There might be 1 million people in your target market. Usually in B2B SaaS, there's somewhere between 50,000 and 1 million people in your target market. It's not B2C where you might have 20 million potential consumers. It's more like 50K to 1 million at most. In our particular industry is what we go after. Our target addressable market is B2B SaaS founders and CEOs with at least 1 million in revenue. There's about 300,000 of those people that fit that criteria in the world. So we went on to Apollo.io, exported the list of everybody that fit those criteria, went on to Instantly, did the same thing, went on to Lucia, ZoomInfo, Listkit, Seamless, LinkedIn Sales Navigator, PitchBook, Adapt, and exported a comprehensive list of everybody using 8 or 9 of these different tools. Now, once you have what I call your lead list, you might also call that your ABM lead list, your account-based marketing lead list of everybody in your target market. That's the big first step. Then the question is, what the heck do you do with 200,000 or 300,000 people who are in your target market? There's 2 things you do with that list. The first thing you want to do with that list is you want to upload it to the ad networks, to Meta, to LinkedIn, to Google, to AdRoll, and you want to create what's called a matched audience, sometimes called a custom audience. About 30 to 60% will usually match depending on the ad network. And then what you want to do is start showing ads to people who are in your target market. And you combine that with the second step I'm about to tell you, and it's very powerful. The second step is once you have ads going to this matched audience of people who are in your target market, then you start setting up cold email sequences using a tool like Instantly to go out to the same people that you're showing ads to. This is how you make your brand omnipresent. And you could do this for Redditus. I'm sure you already do some of this. You could do this if you're a listener for your B2B SaaS company. And you go onto a tool like Instantly. There's probably 20 others that are these outbound marketing sending tools. And you set up educational sequences that provide value. And that's the key. There's too much email that's going out that doesn't provide value. You need to provide value, and it needs to go exactly to your target market who you know has the problem that your software solves. So once you have your list uploaded, you create a 5 email sequence and you start sending it out every 2 to 3 days. And then you start seeing who's engaging with the content, who's clicking on it, who's downloading your PDFs. You take those people that are engaging with your content and downloading your marketing materials, and you put them onto a warm sequence, onto a weekly newsletter. And then that's how you very quickly can take a cold list of 200,000-300,000 people in your target market and turn it into a warm email list of 20, 30, 40,000 people within 2 or 3 months. That's the high level of how to do it.
Are you struggling to find people and companies which have access to your ideal customer profile? At Redditus, we just launched a second side of the marketplace, which allows you to search, filter, and contact B2B SaaS affiliates which have access to the audience you're looking for. We do this by leveraging first-party data sources. Want to learn more? Go to getredditus.com. You mentioned at the beginning, start experimenting. Getting a list of 200,000 companies might be a long thing to do, and you're not going to run ads on all of them right away. How would you recommend people to get started with this? So out of that big list, take a small chunk and have that as an experiment, or?
I think that is not how I would do it. The way I would do it is I would define as carefully as I can who is my target market, and then I would get all of them. So let's just say, for example, there's 200,000 people in your target market, in your geography with job titles of people that you target. Email lists aren't as expensive as they used to be. We have data brokers that have unlimited subscription enterprise accounts with Apollo that will offer their Apollo.io, the lead prospecting platform, that will offer $600 per 100,000 records. So to get a list of 200,000 people, maybe you're looking at $1,500. Maybe you're looking at the most $3,000 to $4,000. Now, if you're a one guy bootstrapped and you don't got $3,000 or $4,000, okay, fine. Start with a subset of the list. But if you're a company that's got $3,000, $4,000, you can invest in leads. Buying a list that's comprehensive of everybody in your target market is probably the least expensive thing you can do in terms of the ROI it's going to produce. And so I would highly encourage everyone to don't just start with 1,000 leads or 5,000 leads. That's thinking small. Get everybody in your target market. Spend 2 weeks doing nothing but getting a list of everybody in your target market. If you need to spend $5,000 on it, spend $5,000 on it. Once you have that list, start reaching out to people and start showing ads to those people. And we've invested at SaasRise. We've scaled from 0 to 3 million in ARR at SaasRise in the last 12 months, going from nothing to $3 million a year in recurring revenue. And we've done that by implementing and utilizing the exact 3-step system that I just talked about. Know our unit economics, build our ABM lead list, and then do outbound marketing and ads. And so I would just encourage you, if $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 is too much money, then fine. Start with a list of 10,000 and run the system and get it to work, get your first few customers, and then go get your next 20,000 and then expand from there. But if you're already at 500,000 ARR, if you're already at $1 million ARR or more, and you can invest, this is the thing you want to put $5,000 or $10,000 into to be able to get many more customers coming in the door.
And would you then also start running ads on all of them and start sending out the emails to all of them, or would you chop that up?
Here's my math on it. So if you've got a list of 200,000 target leads and you want to throw in 30,000 a month, 30,000 leads a month, 30,000 leads a month take about 6 to 7 months, right? To get through 200,000 people. So you can go on any of these outbound sending tools like Instantly, Apollo, SalesLoft, Outreach, Gong Engage, any of these tools. We like Instantly because they do the email warm up and make it easy to get inboxes for you. You can set up a system for not that much money, maybe $1,000 to $2,000 a month, that will be able to bring in automatically on autopilot 1,000 leads a day. And I think that's a good number to go after. 1,000 cold leads a day coming into the top of your marketing funnel. That will definitely move the needle. If you've created a very valuable 5-email sequence with really good case studies, really good PDF reports, really good surveys, summaries, something that's actually useful, not just a one-liner saying, hey, book a demo, but something that actually educates the consumer, the customer on the problem and the solution you have, and makes them problem aware and solution aware, then go ahead and set up as your evergreen system so that you're bringing in 1,000 leads a day automatically into a tool like Instantly to send out the sequence. And yes, that is going to take 6 months to go through, but I think it's better to just do it all as a batch. Get your 200,000 leads, and it might only be 50,000 for your company. Go get your full list of leads of everyone in your market, upload them as a matched audience, start serving ads to these people, because it's often going to take 2-3 months of showing ads to these people before it starts to register. You need to make 20 impressions usually before people will start to pay attention. And those impressions will come via ads and outbound email. And yes, it might take 6 months to email them all, but that's okay. Think about it as market education, and you're moving people down a funnel where they start out as strangers, and then you build awareness, interest, desire, action, and then they purchase, and then you expand. And so that's the SaaS marketing funnel. And so I would do it all at once. We don't spend a lot on sales and marketing. We spend about $15,000 a month. For a company, we're about $300,000 a month in revenue. So at $300,000 a month in revenue, we're spending about 5% of that on sales and marketing, $15,000 a month. For not a lot of money, we're able to reach 300,000-400,000 SaaS founders continually and invite them to join our community and provide really valuable content to them. So that's our philosophy of it. Are we more aggressive than most? Absolutely. And that's probably why our revenue is growing faster than most.
Yeah. And I can fully relate. I think I got into your funnel by either connecting with you on LinkedIn, then I showed interest on the site, then you start seeing your ads. And at one point you get your emails because I probably signed up somewhere. They're all value based. You have all these sessions you do, which you shared in the newsletters, which is really nice. This is how I got you on my podcast. I really need to get Ryan on because there's so much knowledge there.
Yep, that's exactly right. Provide value and brand omnipresence. And if you're a technical founder, find someone to partner with, whether it's a head of marketing or a co-founder who likes creating content. And there's only 2 ways to create content: video and writing. One of the two. And you can turn writing into video and you can turn video into writing. Start with video, podcasts like this that are video that can be transcribed and then edited into long form written content or short form written content, or start with long form writing content. Either way, there has to be a single person in your organization who is expert level, who has the experience necessary to spend about 3 hours a week creating content. And if you can spend 3 hours a week creating content, your marketing will take off.
Nice. Does that gonna line up pretty well with, I think, the next step? Because the next step is inbound.
Right. That's right. And I call it the SaaS content machine. You want to build your B2B content machine. The key to this is to set aside about 3 hours on your schedule. And it doesn't have to be you, but ideally it's the founder CEO. And to spend about 3 hours every Monday, either recording video content or writing long form content. Now, there's a lot of things you could be doing. You could be hiring staff, you could be raising capital, you could be doing a lot of things, but ultimately creating high quality content that educates your marketplace is the number one thing that will drive more revenue for your business. And driving more revenue for your business in B2B is critical. If you're at 10 million ARR already, great. You can outsource this and have someone else create the content. But if you're in that 0 to 10 million ARR, there's nothing better you can do with your time as a founder CEO than spend 2 to 3 hours a week just creating killer content that truly demonstrates mastery of the field, and then distributing that in multiple formats via your email newsletter, your cold email sequences, your ads, your LinkedIn posts. That is the way to scale up awareness of your brand.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, you can do it in multiple different ways. For example, we're recording this on Monday morning. I don't know if this is within your 3-hour bucket, but you're spending an hour to record the podcast, which you can turn into a lot of small form content if you want to.
Yep, that's exactly right. I've got my 3 hours later this afternoon, and I'll be writing articles and distributing them to our Beehive newsletter list. We're able to get about 1.5 million total content impressions per month within our target addressable market. And so if our audience is 300,000 possible SaaS founders, that means that they're seeing our content 5 times a month. What do I consider a content impression? In the realm of making our brand omnipresent, what I consider a content impression is an ad impression, a LinkedIn impression, by that a post that gets seen, an email open, or a website view. So, those are the 4. And you can add a 5th if you do like YouTube videos or Wistia videos or Loom videos, you could add that. So that ad impressions, LinkedIn organic impressions, email opens, not sends, because they're not all seen, but the opens, the ones that are actually seen, website views, and then video views. Those 5 categories are the 5 categories of content. And if you can just calculate once a month, take 20 minutes to do it, the number of impressions for your ads, your LinkedIn posts, your email opens, your website views, and your video views, and then just add that up. I promise you the difference between a fast growing B2B SaaS company and a slow growing B2B SaaS company is that the slow growing company is probably going to have 20,000 content impressions a month. And the fast growing B2B SaaS company is going to have 1 million. And that's going to be the difference. Now, how do you get 1 million impressions of your content? Do you have to spend millions of dollars? No, we spend $15,000 a month on sales and marketing, about 10,000 on ads, and about 5,000 on a sales team. So $10,000 on ads is getting us about 600,000 impressions per month. Where do the other 6, 7, 800,000 impressions come from? We've built a very big email list. We get about 6, 700,000 impressions per month, opens per month of our email content that we send out between warm and cold. Most of it's warm, but cold is a significant percentage as well. Not that many. We get about 20,000 to 25,000 website views a month. We get way more email views. Lastly, we get maybe 10,000 video views a month. Between all of those, we're getting about 1.3, 1.4 million content impressions per month right now. We're making our SaasRise brand omnipresent within our target market. Regardless of your target market, you can do the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And what you mentioned before, like when you were doing outbound, you were guiding people into leaving their email, building up your own audience, making it omnipresent, as you mentioned. So you can lead with the paid part and then work their way into your organic channel.
That's exactly right. I think the key, just to recap, is start with a cold list of all the possible leads that you could have. Build a full list of everyone in your target market. Start sending out cold emails that are high value, that educate your market, that differentiate yourself versus everyone else. Find the people that click and engage, put those people under your warm list. Have the second warm sequence that's more in depth and has different content. Start sending out a weekly newsletter, not a monthly newsletter, with valuable content. Spend 3 hours a week writing great content or recording video. A great hack is to hire a virtual assistant from Wing Assistant or Athena, where you can get someone for $1,500 a month or even $700 a month half time. And just have them write a list of questions for you to respond to on video once a week and have them turn the transcript into valuable content. The key is to make sure you're soliciting great content from your own brain, either by typing or by speaking, whichever way works better for you. And then having that process of taking that content, turning it into quality PDFs and outputs and reports and videos and LinkedIn posts, have that be proceduralized through a standard operating procedure that every single week allows you to have one blog post, one email post, 2 or 3 LinkedIn posts, and a new ad set. If you can do that, you'll win.
Yeah. And what I really get out of this as well, like you mentioned a couple of times, Monday, you blocked it in your calendar. So you're super consistent with it because on Monday you have 3 hours to really do this. And you mentioned as well, if you keep doing this, you're going to win. So consistency is going to be key here as well.
That's right.
Cool. Let's move over to the next step, which I believe is scaling.
Absolutely. In the realm of scaling, you need to hire team. You need to hire leadership. You need to hire C-level executives. You need to have systems, benchmarks, KPIs, performance reviews. You probably need a CFO or maybe a COO. It's fun. The first 0 to 10 million is all about growth hacking, product building, and finding a way to get through to solving a problem that matters in the world to people. Once you get to 10 million, it's like starting a whole new game. It's like going from college football to the NFL. You have to learn a whole new playbook. The thing that got you from 0 to 10 million is not going to get you from 10 to 50 million. What's going to get you from 10 to 50 million is building a great team and building great systems that can operate without you. Once you get to 10 million in revenue, you want to make yourself completely redundant. You want to make yourself unnecessary in your own company. It's funny because in the 0 to 10 million, you need to be extremely necessary. You're creating all this content. You're doing a lot of the big sales. You're closing the big deals. You're reaching out. You're doing a lot in the 0 to 10 million, the first 3 to 5 years. But once you get to 10 million, it can't be about you anymore. There's no way to scale as a single individual beyond 5 to 10 million without building a great team. And so who are the key people you need in this scaling phase? You're going to need a really great head of sales that's not you. You're going to need a great head of marketing that's not you. So great CRO and CMO. You're eventually probably around 15 or 20 million. Going to need a great CFO or controller who's obviously not you. And you're going to eventually, by the time you're 20, 25 million, going to need a great head of HR who can handle recruiting all the people you're bringing in. At iContact, we were hiring 10 people a month. To hire 10 great people a month, 2 to 3 a week. You need a system for recruiting. And then you need a system for compensating and evaluating the performance of all the existing people you have on your team. And so this is where you want to build a system that can operate while you sleep. The key to making a lot of money is to make money while you sleep. Key to making money while you sleep is to build systems that can operate without you. In this phase, this sort of phase 2 of a business going from, I guess, phase 3. Phase 1 is product market fit, 0 to 1 million. Phase 2 is 1 to 10 million of founder-led growth. And then phase 3 is scaling, and that's 10 to 100 million ARR. In that third phase, you need to build a system that can work without you. I encourage all the CEOs I coach within that 10 to 100 million ARR range to take a month off every summer. That is non-negotiable, and in which they will not be checking email, in which the only way to get to them is if their one deputy that they have, either their COO or EA, has their SMS. Like in a real emergency, they can SMS them, but no Slack, no email, no phone calls, literally take a vacation. They can go start a new company or work on a new project. Great. But don't do anything within the operations of your existing business for 4 weeks, for a full month every summer. The reason why you do that is because you have to find where the points of failure are, and you have to find where the business can't scale without you. And the only way to identify the areas that require you is to leave. So that it's just, hey, we tried to do this thing and there wasn't the right protocol in place to make the decision, or we needed this password and it wasn't saved. You need to figure out how to get the business to grow. And the idea is you take a month off, and the business, when you come back, needs to be stronger and it needs to be bigger than when you left. If you keep doing that every year, your team will make sure that they develop systems that don't require you. And that's what you want. You want at that phase to have systems that don't require you. Once you get to that 20 million, 30 million, 40 million in ARR range, which is hard, but it is definitely doable, that's when you start to think about exiting, which is, of course, the next phase, which we can talk about. But that's when you start to think about, do you test the market? Do you get an M&A advisor? When's the right time to sell? So those are the steps so far. Figure out your unit economics, figure out what you can pay to acquire a customer, do outbound, do paid advertising, do inbound, create your growth machine, raise capital if necessary, start scaling by building a system that can operate without you. And then the last step, think about when the right time to exit is.
Yeah. One question I would want to ask, which you went over quickly, capital. So we went from scaling almost to exit, right? What do you recommend for capital wise? So we first mentioned grow to 500K ARR yourself. Once it is time to raise capital, what would you recommend SaaS companies to do here?
Yeah. So there's many phases in a company's life. I think delaying the venture capital until you've got at least 500K in ARR is critical. I would even encourage companies to delay it till you got $1 million in ARR. Is it annoying to wait to raise capital? Absolutely. It's so easy to just go and raise $1 million or $2 million from a venture investor. But I promise you, there are hidden things in their term sheets and definitive agreements that will screw you if you don't continue growing very quickly. And in some cases, you've got a rocket ship and you can keep growing at 150% a year for 5 years and you're fine. You can outgrow those down round provisions or those anti-dilution provisions or those preferred shares that end up screwing you if you don't keep growing quickly. But in many cases, I can't tell you how many situations I've heard of SaaS companies that in 2021 raised money at 15 times revenue that never grew into that valuation. 3 or 4 years later, they still can't raise capital at that valuation. And the second they go and raise money at a lower valuation, it basically gets rid of their entire common shareholder value. Long story short, wait until you've got your growth engine built and that putting in an extra 3, 4, 5, 6 million in outside capital can actually turn into multiples of that in terms of new revenue. Build your paid ad system, build your outbound system, build your inbound, nail your SEO, nail your review sites, get the trade shows going, get your affiliate system going. Once you have your channels working and you've got $1 million plus in ARR and you've got product market fit, then go out and raise the outside capital. That's the first part. The second part is some companies never need venture capital because they're growing quickly and profitable. If you're growing at 50% plus a year and you're profitable, you might not need venture capital. But if you exist in an industry that is highly disruptive, highly innovative, fast moving, and you want to win, having that access to institutional venture capital, if your growth rate can support it and you know how to spend it, can allow you to get the team and to put money into sales and marketing and put money into the R&D necessary to actually win in the marketplace. The question really becomes, when do you do the Series A, how much? When do you do the Series B and how much? And my rule of thumb is simply this: don't raise more than 1 times your ARR. So if you've got $1 million in ARR, raise $1 million. If you've got 5 million in ARR, raise 5 million. If you've got 30 million in ARR, raise 30 million. But don't do what certain companies do. And at say 10 million in ARR, they go out and raise 50, 60 million, because you're going to give up way too much equity, way too much control. And if you don't keep growing and you're wrong about whether you can spend that money to generate more customers and more revenue, you're going to end up with nothing. You don't want to take that risk where you take this company that you could just sell right now for 30 million and end up taking a risk and keep 80% of it, and end up taking a risk where you raise that money because you're trying to get that $1 billion exit, but then you end up actually with zero. And I've seen that happen way too often. So be thoughtful. Don't raise more than about 1x your ARR, and make sure you put that capital that you raise into sales and marketing and R&D, into projects that will actually generate more revenue. So I can go into more detail on that, but that's the high level about what I think about raising outside capital.
I think we are going to move on to the final step, which is exit. The podcast title is going to be The Path to a Successful $100 million plus SaaS exit.
Yep.
How do we get there? Tell us about the exit. What kind of advice would you give here?
The first step to a successful exit is building a SaaS firm to at least 3-4 million in ARR. You can exit a 1 to 2 million ARR firm on a marketplace like acquire.com or Flippa or Biz Buy Sell or Empire Flippers or Niche Investor, something like that. But you're not going to get a great multiple. You might get 1 to 2x your revenue. That's fine. 5 million can be life-changing money, particularly if you own all of it. Don't be afraid of hitting singles and doubles. If you can get your revenue above 3 to 4 million a year, then what it does is it opens you up to higher multiples and more professional investment advisors that can help you sell and access a much bigger, broader swath of the marketplace. If you can get to that magic number, which I like to say is 5 million in ARR, you can really sell your company for a good price. There are within our community a course, as you mentioned, the SaaS Growth System course, which is free for SaasRise members. And in that, we have a slide. And on that slide, we list all of the M&A advisors that work with companies in SaaS based on their current ARR. If you're in that $5 million range, you could work with firms like Aventis Advisors, Software Equity Group, FE International, Embark Advisors, Livmo, Bupos, some of those firms. Reach out to them, have a conversation. They'll tell you what they think you're worth. They'll probably take 3 to 5% of the deal, probably a little bit higher since it's a smaller deal. And they'll tell you, can you sell for 15 million? Can you sell for 30? Somewhere around 3 to 5x revenue is possible when you're at that sort of $4 to $6 billion range. Now, if you can get your ARR over 10 million, you've entered into a third tier. And that's where you can work with what I would call real investment banks, firms that are licensed, firms that are going out and running a professional, tight, competitive process. We have relationships with firms like Influence Partners, Agile Equity, Elantra, Lightning Partners, Comcat, firms that will represent your firm well, reach out to potential private equity buyers and strategic buyers, and get a competitive process done where you're getting multiple term sheets and offers to buy your company all at the same 2-week period that will allow you to negotiate those term sheets, optimize them, and get a revenue multiple, EBITDA multiple, and ultimate enterprise valuation that is materially higher than what you might get on your own if you ran the process yourself. So I'm a big fan of using an investment bank. Oftentimes you'll get 20 to 30% more money that way. And so the 3% that you pay to the investment bank as their fee ends up being more than worth it. Once you get to roughly 10 to 20 million, that's when a $100 million exit in ARR, that's when a $100 million exit becomes possible. Happy to talk more about that, but that's the key. Grow your revenue, build a system, decide if you're going to sell based on revenue multiple or EBITDA multiple, which we can talk about, and then find the right investment bank, run a process, and exit.
Yeah, because I think what you mentioned there, like the 2%, a lot of companies probably don't want to work with an investment bank when they see the fees they have to pay. But you also mentioned you could actually get a higher value for your company if you start working with them. It's more than money well spent.
It's basically free because, just to briefly touch on that, if you run the process yourself, you're not going to have the time or expertise or credibility to guide M&A teams at these large private equity funds and these large corporate acquirers on telling them what the timeline is going to be. Whereas if you're an investment bank and you have relationships and you've done 20 deals with these people already, you can say on November 25th, you need to have your best and final offer in. And if you don't, you're not going to be able to participate in the actual purchase. Whereas if you're just an individual founder trying to tell some $200 million private equity firm this stuff, they're going to laugh at you. Their credibility comes from their relationships, which comes from their experience and deal volume. And you just don't have that as a founder. I would strongly encourage people to just say that 3% fee, you're going to make that back 5 times by just finding the right people to work with.
Makes sense. We're going to dive into the final question. I'm going to dive into the revenue stages. We covered more than 1 to 10 million, so I won't go into that. But what kind of advice would you have SaaS founders who are just really starting out and growing to 10K monthly recurring revenue?
Just get your product launched, start outbounding to cold prospects that fit your target market, start posting on LinkedIn, start doing some long tail SEO like competitor versus you, start doing some paid search, similar brand terms, competitor one versus you. Those are the easy ways to acquire low hanging fruit in customer acquisition.
Nice. Thank you. Let me see if I can summarize. When you're going to start out, aim for an exit as a SaaS founder, but bootstrap the first 500K ARR, leverage your community because it can be lonely or hard to find advice from other people. Common mistakes is not doing enough marketing, so definitely lead with value or having a bad product. So I guess to turn it around, build a great product, which is easy to use. We're going to dive into the growth system. There are 7 steps. First one, prepare, get your unit economics right. 4 or 5 critical metrics you have to check: ARPA, monthly account churn, LTV, and your target customer acquisition cost, which I guess the easy example you mentioned, 6 months of revenue. Then we go to outbound, which is the holy grail to scaling. So think about email, LinkedIn, calling, paid ads. But first, build and export a list of your target accounts. So your ICP, get everybody in there, upload it to the ad networks, create match audience, build an email sequence, 5 email sequence, as you mentioned. And here again, provide value, educate the market, turn those into a warm list with a weekly newsletter, another monthly newsletter. Then start turning things inbound, build a content machine, map out 3 hours per week, educate your market, but do it yourself as a founder, especially in the early stage. Focus on distribution, get content impressions, and be omnipresent. We are going to scale, so 10 million plus ARR, build a great team, processes, systems. They need to be able to operate without you. Ideally, be able to make money while you sleep. How do you make sure that you can do this? Just take a month off in the summer to identify the bottlenecks, because they will come up then. Then capital, delayed again until 1 million ARR if possible. Don't raise more than 1 times your ARR, and make the channels work before you start raising. When we look at exits, ideally get to 5 million plus ARR, which is going to give you higher multiples. And then if you're going to work towards 10 million ARR, work with investment banks and check out all the names Ryan mentioned.
You got it. You did a great job.
There we go. Cool. If people, you mentioned a lot of times, right? SaasRise, if people want to get in contact with you, what will be the best way to do?
Just reach out to me, Ryan, at SaasRise.com, and check out the community at SaasRise.com. We welcome anyone who is a SaaS founder, CEO with 1 million or more in ARR.
Cool. We're going to add your email. We're going to add a link towards the community so people can find you, so they don't have to guess how to spell your name. If you are listening right now, please leave us a review on Spotify, and we're going to add a poll to this episode as well. Make sure you let us know what you thought of it. Thanks again for coming on, Ryan.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for watching this show of the Grow Your B2B SaaS podcast. You made it till the end, so I think we can assume you liked this content. If you did, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. If you like this content, feel free to reach out if you want to sponsor the show. If you have a specific guest in mind, if you have a specific topic you want us to cover, reach out to me on LinkedIn. More than happy to take a look at it. If you want to know more about Veritas, feel free to reach out as well. But for now, have a great day and good luck growing your B2B SaaS.